Hello, welcome to the Garage Workshop and part 2 of the video series on the Lumberjack PT254. If you've seen the first video, you'll have seen me put the Lumberjack together. In this video, we'll be putting it through its paces on a variety of different woods, testing both the thicknesser element and the planer. I'll also be giving you my opinion on the Lumberjack and whether I think it's a good purchase or not. If you enjoy the video, please click the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you can be informed on future videos. We have another video coming up in a couple of weeks on this, the Parkside Double Bench Grinder. Don't forget to comment as usual. Enjoy the video.
Okay, so the only thing I've done since we made the last video is put on the dust hood. You have to be very careful putting the dust hood on. It says in the manual, well, it doesn't say anything in the manual, let's face it, the manual's been pretty rubbish all the way through, but what it does show is that you have to put it in and get these two pegs that are here to solidly sit in, and on the top there's a hole with a threaded screw that you put the screw down, but the gap in the screw is quite big. It's not just a single bolt hole, so there is a lot of movement back and forward in the top of the dust hood. If you don't get the dust hood sat absolutely correctly, then the pin on the back, and I'll show you a close-up of this as I'm talking to you now, this pin at the back won't fit in to the micro switches. And if you remember when I showed you the first unpacking, there was this picture in it, this extra piece of paper, and what that extra piece of paper says is that you have to make sure these micro switches are located properly, because if you don't, it won't work. And I know from reading reviews on YouTube, that has been an issue with people not seating those properly. I've also attached my workshop vac. I've got just a bog standard workshop vac, and that's going to be in one of my other videos, so if you're interested in knowing what one I've got or how it works, then you can do it there. So first of all, we're going to use the thicknesser. Now, I do warn you, when you watch this, please don't all flame in the comments and say you should have done this, you should have done that. This is going to be the very first time I've ever used a thicknesser planer, so I'm sure I'm going to get it wrong, but I will include all the times I get it wrong, because if some of you buy this the same as I have, you've never used one before, you'll make the same mistakes unless you watch this video. So I'm going to put on my protective wear, and I've got some different sections of wood that we're going to run through it, and I'll run through each of those as we do it. But first of all, I'm going to start with one of these, which is some reclaimed floorboard. I've got quite a lot of these, and this is actually the reason I bought the planer. So you see on one side it's fairly decent halfway and a bit rubbish at the end, but the other side is covered in years and years of grime and dirt. So that's what we're going to start with first. So first impressions really good. I only had a couple of passes, took about 2 mil off, and as you can see, really nice. A couple of bits of grey on this one from the dirt that was in there before, but the other thing is this board is nowhere near flat, so I think that's probably just where it hasn't gone through the thicknesser properly, but you can see how nice the finish is. Hopefully you can see that at home. There's a few places where it will need sanding, but nothing too bad. And actually for 2 passes, I think it got down to 2 mil in the end. That's really good. And this is what it looked like before. So quite a difference you can see. And this was the second board that I did. Looks like a completely brand new board. So really good. The edges aren't too good at all, but we're going to switch over now and use the planer, and we'll give that a go. But before we do, I've got 2 other pieces of wood. I've got this piece of hardwood. I'm not sure what it is. It's pretty thick, but it was on a table that I used to have, so I'm going to use that. And I've got this, which is a nice solid chunk of oak that came off a door I recently recycled. So we'll run both of those through and see how it goes. Let's have a go. So we'll do the hardwood first. Okay, so you've seen the thicknesser part of the lumberjack. It's time to do the planer now across the top. I've just set it up off camera. I will put a little bit of video in to show you how tricky the fence was to set up. I'm presuming the fence was only tricky because it's the first time, but it was quite a way out, and I got a couple of pictures to show you. It was at least 3 or 4 mil out on the top, and it took quite a lot of shifting around of the bolts and everything to get it right. Now, it's still not 100% vertical, but my speed square has got it as straight as it could possibly be, and I think you could spend another 6 or 7 hours fiddling with it. It's straight enough. There is a little bit of a gap on the side. You can see the wood's moving quite a little bit, but it is upright, and if you try and change that or make it more straight or more vertical, it just flops over and then the wood is out at the bottom. So another thing that I will fiddle with after the review, but it's straight enough now, and with the guarding it's enough I can get it in there. I did make a huge mistake, and I did say to you that these videos were going to be warts and all. I spent about 20 minutes trying to get the dust hood on in this position with the 2 braces that are in there, and unfortunately for me I wasn't able to read the simple English that says this part is only used for protection, remove before using the machine, which I didn't do, and that's why I couldn't get the dust chute in. So let's rev it up and give it a go and see how it comes with the planer. And I think this time we'll start with this piece of oak because it's got quite a rough bottom on it, and actually, to be fair, it's not very straight either. So let's see how the lumberjack gets on with this piece of oak.
So overall, what are my thoughts about the Lumberjack PT254 planer? Well, as I've said all the way through and in the first video, I'm a real novice DIYer. I didn't have a single tool 12 months ago. I'd never picked up so much as a hammer really in my whole life. And in those 12 months, I've learned quite a lot about power tools and how to use them. I bought the Lumberjack for occasional thicknessing and planing. I'm not going to be using it every single day. In fact, I probably won't use it more than 3 or 4 times in a month, depending on the project I'm doing. So I'm not using it every day. So for me, it fits the purpose that it was bought for, was an occasional thicknesser planer. So it definitely ticks all of those boxes. But there are a few things about the thicknesser planer which I don't like. Number one, most importantly, is the price. Had you bought one of these thicknesser planers before we had the COVID lockdown, you would have got it a considerable amount cheaper. And obviously Brexit didn't help because they're all manufactured abroad and sold through the company Lumberjack, which I think is based in the Midlands. So price, I think it's a little bit too expensive for the machine unit it is. It probably could have been £100 cheaper and it would have been much better value for money. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I do think the fence is a major drawback. I've been using this, and you've seen in the video I only used it to edge 2 or 3 pieces of wood, and I've just checked with my square and the fence is out again, even though I spent a long time getting it right. So what I'm going to be doing over the next couple of weeks is seeing if I can create my own fence that will work on the planer, that will make it much more reliable than it is, because you shouldn't have to completely change and realign the fence every time you do a new job. With more expensive thicknesser planers, I'm sure you don't have to do that, and there's no reason why the Lumberjack shouldn't be like that either. And it may be that I just have to get a shim or something to put onto this fence, to keep it completely straight. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is just about the dust collection. A couple of times the planer thicknesser went completely dead on me, stopped completely, and I thought, oh, I've burnt it out. I hadn't. It was the fact that the vacuum had got blocked from taking away the dust. Now, I've got a Shipak and it's a really, really good quality work vacuum, and it handles all my other power tools without any problem at all. It was completely blocked. And the actual unit, I'll put a picture up so you can see it now. The actual unit where the blades were was blocked solid. So when I managed to clear that, it worked again perfectly, but then it stopped again and I had to repeat the process. So I need to keep a much better eye on the dust extraction in future to make sure it doesn't block up. So that's the second thing. And just the third thing, this is not a high quality, highly manufactured unit. The handle that adjusts the bed up and down moves during thicknessing, and a couple of times it moved, and as it moves the bed slowly lowers. A couple of times when I did that, I started off thicknessing a piece of wood, and then towards the end there was no thicknessing going on, and the reason was the handle had slowly unwound and the bed had slightly dropped. So when I do it in future, I'm going to put a clamp on that and make sure that the thicknesser, the bed doesn't drop down as I'm planing, because A, it's a pain in the backside, and B, it does put marks in the wood which you don't need. So overall, my overall recommendation, would I recommend this for you to buy? Well, if you need a thicknesser planer that you can use every single day and put 2 or 3 hours a day through it, I don't think I would recommend it, because it's a good unit, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's made for that sort of heavy duty input that I know some people will put through it. If I'm just going to do occasional thicknessing in different types of wood, is it any good? Well, my personal opinion is it is. It did a very, very good job on the wood, particularly the oak, which has come out absolutely crystal clear. So for me, yes, it is worth it, but not if you're going to use it all of the time. The other thing is, if you're not desperate for a thicknesser planer, then I would potentially wait, give it 3 or 4, maybe 6 months and see if the price comes down, because the availability of thicknesser planers during lockdown was very, very minimal, and a lot of factories I know that produce these sorts of things just stopped working, particularly if they were outside of China. And I think when more are on the market and you're able to buy more and there is the availability of different models, this model may come down in price, so it may well be worth doing it. Last thing and final thing I should say I haven't been sponsored, I'm not affiliated to anybody. I did this review and put it on YouTube because I'm sure there are some of you out there like me who wanted a thicknesser planer and really didn't have the time to hang around for everything to get back to normal. Having looked at YouTube, I could not find a single review of this particular model made by Lumberjack. In fact, there's very few Lumberjack products that are reviewed at all. That's why I did the review. I hope you found it useful. As I've said, I'm a beginning woodworker, but I've got lots of projects coming up over the next few months, and I'm going to put all of them on YouTube. So if you've enjoyed it and if you're interested, please come and join me on the next project. Happy woodworking, everyone.